You know when they say that family is the safest place in the world? Lie. The biggest lie I've ever heard in my life, because it was inside my own house, in my child's room, with dolls on the shelf and drawings on the wall, that my brother did to me what not even the devil would have the courage to do. And my father? Oh, my father always thought the sun rose and set on that boy. Even today, with 73 years of life behind me, I still hear that deep voice saying, "Are you making things up again, girl?" Inventing as if the belly that grew inside me at 14 years old was an invention of my head. My name is Jessica Razuka, but you can call me Mrs. Jessica. I was born in 1951 here in Gurupai, Tocantins, at a time when children had no voice, no place for girls, so girls were supposed to be quiet, obey and be grateful. Today, on this hot January afternoon, sitting on the porch of my simple, but honest little house, I decided to tell a story that I have kept for almost 6 decades. It's not a pretty story, you know? It's one of those stories that makes your stomach churn, that makes you want to cover your ears, but it needs to be told, because I know there are many girls out there going through the same hell I went through, thinking they're alone in the world. If you're listening to me now, tell me in the comments where you're from. I want to know if my story is reaching far, if there are people from all over Brazil following it. And look, if you can, give the video a like and subscribe to the channel, because every like, every comment gives me strength to continue talking about what many people prefer to hide under the carpet. I remember like it was yesterday the first time I realized that something was very wrong in my family. I must have been about 7 years old. I was playing house in the backyard when I heard my father yelling at my mother in the kitchen. It was nothing new. He always screamed, but this time it was different. "Oh Maria, stop spoiling that girl. Let her learn that Tonanho and I are the ones in charge in this house." Tonanho, my older brother. 5 years older than me, to be exact. Dark-skinned, tall from an early age, with those green eyes that he got from I don't know where, because in our family everyone has brown eyes. The neighbors were always saying that he was too handsome, that he would break many hearts. Little did they know that the first heart he would destroy would be mine. My father, Jao Razuka, was one of those men who was born at the wrong time. I thought that women were meant to serve, that men didn't cry, that a male child was worth 10 females. I worked at the city hall, I don't know exactly what I did, but I always came home smelling of kashika and cigarettes. When he was in a good mood, he ignored my existence. When were you in a bad mood? Ah, when he was in a bad mood, it was best to disappear from sight. My mother, Dona Maria das Dores, a name that could not be more appropriate, was a saint, tiny, her hair always tied in a tight bun, her hands calloused from washing so much laundry. She tried, poor thing. I tried to protect myself as best I could, but there wasn't much I could do against my father. "Be quiet, my daughter," she whispered when her father began to shout. "It will pass, it will pass." The house where we lived was one of those with 3 rooms, a living room that served as everything, a bedroom for my parents and a little room in the back that was mine and Tonanho's. In the beginning, when I was very little, we even got along well. He taught me how to climb trees, how to fish in the little river that ran behind the house, how to whistle. But as I grew up, things changed. It started slowly. A naughty hand here, a strange look there. I didn't really understand. I was a child, right? I thought it was normal for a brother to want to hug his sister so tightly, to want to sleep in the same bed, even though his was right next to it. My mother would sometimes come into the room in the middle of the night and see him in my bed. "Tonanho, go to your corner, boy." But he always had an excuse. He was afraid of thunder, he was cold, he missed when he was little. My father? Oh, my father thought it was beautiful. Just look how much they love each other. Now that's a close family. And I patted Tonanho on the back with pride. He was the perfect son, after all. He played soccer like him, drank like him, swore like him. They were 2 in 1. Father and son, one in the same, partners in everything. On the other side, I was the nuisance, the girl who was born when they wanted another boy, the walking disappointment. My father didn't hide it from anyone. That was the miscalculation. He would tell his friends, pointing at me. But what can you do, right? God wanted it that way. The first time I noticed something really strange was on Easter Sunday. I was about 9 years old. I was all dressed up in a yellow dress that my mother had sewn. The whole family was together, uncles, cousins, the house was full, everyone was complimenting how pretty I was, how I was becoming a young lady. Normal, right? It runs in the family. But Tonenho didn't like it. I saw that sudden anger in his eyes, that way of squeezing the soda cup until his knuckles turned white. When everyone went to the backyard to eat barbecue, he pulled me to the corner. You think you're really hot, don't you? You want to get other people's attention? I didn't understand. Whose attention? I was just there quietly in my corner, eating my piece of cake. But he continued. You mine, do you hear me? Mine, I don't want to see you flirting with anyone. Mine? What do you mean, mine? Brothers don't own their sisters, but that day, at that exact moment, something changed. The way he looked at me became different, possessive, dangerous. And I, even without really understanding what was happening, felt fear. A cold fear that ran up my spine and made my stomach turn. I tried to talk to my mother. Mom, Tonenho is acting strange to me. She was washing dishes, her hands full of foam, her face tired as always. She stopped for a second, looked at me and I saw it. I saw that she knew, I saw that she understood, but I also saw the fear in her eyes, the same fear I felt. It's all in your head, daughter. Your brother loves you. He just wants to protect you. And she went back to scrubbing the dishes too hard, as if he could also rub in the truth that we both knew but couldn't say. That's when I realized something terrible. I was alone. My father by his side, my mother too scared to do anything, and me in the middle, a 9-year-old girl having to deal with a monster who slept in the next room. Things got worse. He started coming into the bathroom while I was taking a shower. I forgot my towel, he said, but he just stood there, watching. I would cower in the corner, try to cover myself with my hands, but he wouldn't leave. What's wrong? I'm your brother, man. You don't need to be ashamed of me. I started taking showers with my clothes on. Seriously, I would go into the bathroom dressed, lock the door, and only take my clothes off inside the shower. Even so, he would find a way. He would break down the door, say he needed to use the bathroom urgently. My mother complained about the broken latch. My father said it was my carelessness. The night was worse, much worse. He would wait for everyone to fall asleep and come to my room. At first, I would just sit there on the edge of the bed, running my hand through my hair. You're beautiful, you know? The most beautiful in the family. I pretended to be asleep. I squeezed my eyes tightly, praying for him to go away. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. When I turned 11, things got completely out of control. It was my birthday. In fact, my mother had made a simple cornmeal and guava cake. We sang happy birthday, just the 4 of us. No friends, no parties. My father gave me an old doll he found somewhere. It's time to stop with this nonsense, he said. But here you go. Tonenho gave me a necklace. A cheap plastic necklace like the ones they sell at street vendors, but he made a big deal about it. It's for my beautiful little sister. And he hugged me in front of everyone. A hug that lasted too long, too tight. I felt his hand running down my back, stopping where it shouldn't have. I looked at my mother in despair. She looked away. That night, he came to my room new, but this time it was different. This time he didn't just stare. You're a young lady now, he whispered in my ear. It's time to learn a few things. I was shaking so much that the bed was shaking. I tried to scream, but he covered my mouth. Be quiet. If you scream, I'll tell your father that you're dating the son of Mr. Ze from the bakery. You know what he's going to do to you. Did you know? Of course I knew. I'd seen him beat my mother for much less. Once she smiled at the gas delivery man and got beaten for a week. Imagine what he would do to me if he thought I was offering myself to the kids on the street, as he used to say. So I kept quiet. I bit the pillow and stayed quiet while my brother did things that I still have trouble putting into words. It hurt. It hurt so much I thought I was going to die. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the pain in my soul, knowing that this was happening and no one was going to help me. The next day I could barely walk. My mother noticed, of course. Jessica? Why are you limping? I made up a story that I had fallen. She didn't ask anything else, but when Tonenho wasn't looking, she applied mercury chrome to the wounds. Her hands were shaking, tears were streaming silently down her face, but she said nothing, she never did. From that night on, it became a routine, 2-3 times a week, sometimes more. He waited for everyone to sleep and then came. I learned to switch off. It's amazing how our mind can escape our body when necessary. I imagined that I was flying, that I was a free bird in the sky, that I was anywhere but there in that bed, with that weight on top of me. My father still thought Tonanho was the best. The two of them would go out to the bar together and come back drunk and singing. "This is my son!" he yelled for the whole neighborhood to hear. A real man, not like that boring tomboy Jessica. I was wasting away visibly. I stopped eating properly. I stopped talking. At school, the teachers asked if everything was okay at home. I nodded yes. What was I going to say? Who would believe me? Tonanho was everyone's favorite, handsome, polite, helpful. He helped old ladies with their shopping, played ball with the children on the street, the perfect son. No one imagined the monster he was when the doors closed. There was a day when I almost told everything. It was for Dona Conseco, the neighbor. She was different from the others. She didn't have a husband, lived alone, and worked outside the home. The other women talked badly about her behind her back, saying she was a lesbian, that she was no good, but she was always kind to me. "Jessica, my daughter, you are not well," she said one day, finding me, crying behind the church. "What's going on?" I opened my mouth to speak. The words were there on the tip of his tongue. "My brother, he does things," but then I remembered my father, what he was capable of doing, not only to me, but to my mother, to anyone who got involved. And I kept quiet. "It's nothing, Mrs. Conseco. I'm just sad because I had a fight with a friend." She didn't believe it. I saw it in her eyes, but she didn't insist. Years later, when everything had already happened, she looked for me. "I knew it, Jessica. I knew. And I did nothing." "Pardon me?" I forgave of course what she could have done. At that time nobody talked about these things. It was a family secret, a forbidden subject, a shame that was carried in silence. When I turned 13, my body started to change. Breasts emerging, quadrilateral. My period came and scared me, because no one had ever explained anything to me. My mother gave me some old cloths and said, "Now you are a young lady. Be careful." Be careful of what? I was already taking all the care in the world and it was no use. Tonanho got even worse with the changes in my body. It was as if I had become an even more valuable trophy. Night visits have increased. Sometimes he didn't even wait for everyone to sleep. I would corner myself in the bathroom, in the pantry, in any dark corner of the house. "You're getting hot," he said. "Soon the kids will start hanging around. But you mine, remember? Mine." I was an object, a thing, his private property, stamped and registered. And the worst part is that everyone seemed to agree with that. My father was always saying, "Tonanho will choose who you will marry. He knows the boys in town, he knows who's any good to marry." Little did he know that the only man who had ever touched me was his own son. The last straw came one December afternoon. It was hellishly hot, the kind that makes everyone irritated. My father had left for work, my mother had gone to wash clothes in the river. I was alone at home. Not alone, with him. "Come here, Jessica. Let's take advantage of the fact that there's no one there." I tried to run, but he was faster, grabbed me by the hair, and dragged me to the room. This time I fought. For the first time in all those years I fought. I scratched, I bit, I kicked. But he was stronger. It was always stronger. "You're thinking you're brave now. And I'm going to have to teach you a lesson." The lesson hurt more than all the other times combined. When it was over, I was bleeding profusely. He looked at the blood on the sheet and shrugged. "Clean this up before Mom gets here." But I didn't clean it. I couldn't even get up. I lay there in that red puddle, wanting to die, wanting to disappear, evaporate, cease to exist. That's how my mother found me. Her scream still echoes in my ears. A scream of horror, of pain, of guilt. She knew. Of course I knew. I always knew. My God, my daughter. My God. She hugged me, rocked me like when I was a baby. "Forgive your mother. Forgive." That day, something in her broke. Or maybe it fixed itself. I don't know. I just know that she picked me up, took me to the bathroom, washed me carefully, then made a bundle with our clothes. "Let's go," he said. "Where to, Mom?" "I don't know, but we have to get out of here." But we didn't. When we were at the door, suitcases in hand, my father arrived drunk, as usual. He saw the scene and understood right away. "What kind of nonsense is this?" My mother tried to explain. She stuttered, cried, begged, showed the blood, the bruises. My father listened to everything in silence. Then he looked at Tonenho, who had appeared behind him. "Is this true, son?" Tonenho shrugged. "Jessica is making things up, Dad. You know how women are. She must be jealous because I got a girlfriend." And my father believed it. Either he pretended to believe it, or he simply didn't care. He slapped my mother in the face so hard that she fell. "Stop protecting this __. Do you want to run away? Run away, but the girl stays. Someone has to cook and clean this house." My mother looked at me. I saw the exact moment she gave up on me, on herself, on life. She dropped her suitcase on the floor and went to the room. We never spoke about that day again. Life went on, the nighttime visits continued, my body continued to be invaded, my soul continued to die little by little, but something had changed. I was no longer that scared girl who bit her pillow to keep from screaming. Now I was a survivor, and survivors do whatever it takes to stay alive, even if inside they've been dead for a long time. That's how it works in a house where the monster is protected by the king, where the queen is too weak to protect the princess, where screams are muffled and tears are invisible. That's how a girl learns that family can be synonymous with hell. And the worst was yet to come. The year 1965 started differently. I woke up on the first day of January feeling my stomach churn, but it wasn't a New Year's hangover. We didn't even celebrate anything at home. It was just nausea, the kind that comes out of nowhere and makes you run to the bathroom. I thought it was something I ate. Little did I know that nausea would change the course of my life forever. January flew by. The nausea continued, especially in the morning. My mother noticed, of course. Mothers notice everything, even when they pretend not to see it. "You're eating spoiled food, girl." I shook my head. We didn't have spoiled food. We barely had good food, let alone spoiled food. It was a Tuesday in February that the penny dropped. My period was late, very late. I didn't even care much about these things, I've never been regular anyway. But when I added the delay to the nausea, to my sore breasts, to that strange desire to eat green mango with salt, my God, no, it couldn't be, but it was. I remember the despair I felt. Sitting on the bathroom floor, counting on my fingers how many months it had been since I had had my period. December didn't come. January didn't either. February was already halfway through and nothing. 3 months. 3 months carrying that inside me. I was so panicked that I threw up right there. This time it wasn't pregnancy sickness, it was pure terror. 14 years old. I was 14 years old and pregnant with my own brother. How could I? Was I going to tell this? To whom? My mother already knew about the abuse and did nothing. My father was going to say that it was my fault, that I had seduced Tonenho, and what he was going to do when he found out. I decided to hide it. There was no other way out. I started wearing the loosest clothes I could find, my father's blouses, my mother's loose dresses. I tied cloths around my belly, tightening them so tightly that it hurt. Anything to disguise the bulge that was starting to appear. But a pregnant child's body can't be hidden for long. It was my mother who noticed first. Of course. One morning in March, she came into the room while I was changing my clothes. She saw my belly already protruding, my breasts swollen, the stretch marks starting to appear. Her face lost all color. "Jessica, my daughter, you're here." I started to cry. It was the first time in months that I had really cried. Not the silent kind of crying that I learned to do so as not to bother anyone. I sobbed so hard that I could barely breathe. "Mom, I didn't want to. I swear I didn't want to." She hugged me tight, like she hadn't hugged me in years. We cried together there on the cold floor of the room. Two women broken by the same misfortune. "We have to tell your father," she said finally. The blood ran cold in my veins. "No, Mom, for God's sake, he's going to kill me." "And what do you want me to do, Jessica? Soon it won't be possible to hide it anymore. She was right. At 4 months it was already difficult to hide it. At 5 months it would be impossible. But fear was greater than reason. Let's wait a little longer. Just a little longer? She agreed, poor thing. She was also terrified of my father, but she started to take care of me in secret. She saved extra food, boiled herbal tea that would ease the nausea, and rubbed oil on my belly so that it wouldn't create so many stretch marks. Tonenho kept coming to my room. It's surreal to say this, but he didn't notice anything. Men are dense creatures when they want to be. He did what he did and left, without noticing that my body was changing, that I was moaning not from pleasure, it was never pleasure, but from pain, because everything hurt more with the baby growing inside me. April arrived and with it my despair increased. My belly was already impossible to hide completely. I started wearing a shawl all the time, even in the hellish heat of Tocantins. At school, I pretended that I had a back problem, which is why I walked bent over. The teachers believed or pretended to believe, but at home it was getting harder and harder. It was one night in May that everything fell apart. My father came home drunker than usual. He fought with my mother over the cold dinner, broke 2 plates, kicked the dog. Tonenho tried to calm him down, but not even his favorite son could do it this time. Where is that __ Jessica? He yelled. I was hiding in the room, praying he would forget I existed, but that day I had no luck. He broke down the door, saw me huddled in a corner, trying to cover my belly with the shawl. He took 2 steps toward me and stopped. His eyes went from my face to my belly, back to my face, and back down again. Take off that cloth, Dad. Me take off that cloth. With shaking hands, I took off the shawl. I stood there, my 5-month belly clearly visible under the thin dress. The silence was worse than any scream. He turned red, purple, his eyes bulging out of his head. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, dangerous. Whose is it? I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Whose is it? How was I supposed to answer that? I'm asking who this child is. Jao, calm down. My mother tried to intervene. He slapped her without even looking. Shut up. She turned her attention to me, you __. I knew it. I always knew you were no good. What was it? The son of Ze from the bakery, the butcher's assistant. How many were there, you __. The words cut me more than a knife. __. At 14, pregnant with my brother, and that's what my father saw in me. Dad, it wasn't. Not me. Don't call me Dad. He spat the words. I'm not ___ father. That's when Tonenho came into the room. He saw the scene, he understood right away. But instead of fear or guilt, what I saw on his face was anger. What's going on here, your sister? My father pointed at me like I was a disgusting animal. The __ is pregnant. Tonenho looked at me. Our eyes met for a second. In that second, he knew I was going to speak, he saw it on my face and decided to act first. I knew it, he said calmly. I saw her with Markenhaus at the gas station several times. I tried to tell you, but I didn't want to believe it. Markenhaus, the gas station attendant, a 16-year-old boy who barely looked at me, but the mention of his name was enough for my father to explode. That son of __. I'm going to kill him. And he left the door, staggering drunk, but determined. Tonenho followed, not to stop him, but to make sure the story would stick. I was left alone with my mother. She looked at me with a mixture of pity and despair. Why didn't you tell the truth? Would it have helped? I answered, too tired to cry. Do you think he would believe it? She didn't answer. We both knew the answer. What happened next was an even worse hell. My father went after Markenhaus and made a huge fuss. The boy's family was terrified. They swore that he had never touched me, and it was true, but my father had already spread the word throughout the city that the gas station attendant had abused his daughter's innocence. Within 2 weeks, Markenhaus' family moved out of town. They fled the shame, the threats, the gossip. An innocent man paid for my brother's crime, and I officially became the shame of the family, the lost one, the one who had dishonored the Razuka name. My father wouldn't even look at me anymore. My mother took care of me in secret, but always with that look of someone carrying a heavy guilt. Tonenho, oh, he became the hero, the brother who tried to protect the family's honor. The one who tried to warn his father about his sister's inappropriate behavior, disgusting. At night, he still came to my room sometimes, less than before, because now I was damaged goods, as he said, but he came, and when he came he whispered in my ear, "This son is mine, never forget that." June passed slowly, July even worse. My belly grew, the baby moved, and I was losing weight inside. I stopped going to school. My father forbade it. "I won't be embarrassed by you anymore." I was locked up at home, a prisoner carrying another prison in her womb. The only exits were to the church. My father insisted that I go, that everyone see my sin, my shame. The nuns limp, point, shake their heads in disapproval. I sat on the last bench, Charlie covering his already huge belly, and prayed, not for forgiveness, which forgiveness I needed, but for strength, for a way out, for a miracle. In August, at 8 months pregnant, I could barely walk. Swollen feet, aching back, baby weighing like lead. My mother delivered babies at home. She was a midwife in her spare time, when she wasn't washing clothes or being beaten by my father. She prepared me for the signs, taught me how to breathe, how to bear the pain. "It's going to be difficult," she said. "You're very young, very small, but we'll manage." It was as if she could share the pain of childbirth with me, as if she could carry with her the weight of giving birth to a son who was also my nephew. It was one early morning in September that the pain began. I woke up with a pain in my back, then another in my stomach, liquid running down my legs. The bag had burst. I called my mother softly. She came running, assessed the situation. "It's today." The next few hours were a blur of pain. I bit a cloth so as not to scream, not to wake the men in the house. My mother boiled water, prepared clean cloths, whispered words of encouragement. "Come on, daughter, breathe. That. Like this. It's almost there." But it wasn't almost there. The baby was sitting up, he didn't want to turn over. My mother was sweating as much as I was, her deft hands trying to maneuver it. "Holy Mary, help my daughter." She prayed between procedures. It was 16 hours of labor. 16 hours that seemed like 16 years. When the baby finally decided to be born, I no longer had the strength to push. "One more time, Jessica, just one more." And it was in a last wave of pain that he was born. A small but perfect boy. Dark hair, fair skin. When he opened his eyes they were green, green like tonin hose. My mother cut the cord, cleaned the baby, and wrapped him in a blanket. When he placed it on my chest, I felt something I didn't expect. Love, pure, devastating, unconditional. That little creature wasn't to blame for anything. He was innocent, pure, he deserved all the protection in the world. "What are you going to call him?" my mother asked. Before I could respond, the door opened. My father came in, Toninho behind him. "Have you seen the baby?" They saw me exhausted and bleeding in bed. "It's a boy," my father said. A shadow of something, pride, passed across his face, then disappeared. "It doesn't matter, a son of a __ is always a son of a __." But Toninho came closer, looked at the baby, saw the green eyes, the chin that already showed signs of being square like his. He smiled. "The boy is handsome," he said. And for a moment, a brief moment, I saw something like regret in his eyes. Blame? It wasn't possessiveness, it was twisted pride. That baby was living proof of his power over me. "Go call Carlos," my father decided. Carlos. Right man's name. Maybe he doesn't take after his mother. Carlos. My son had a name now. Carlos Razuka, with no father on record, because officially no one knew who he was. Marquinhos had already been gone for months, so they couldn't put his name on it. Only mine was left. In the following days, the house became strange. My father pretended the baby didn't exist. My mother took care of us both as best she could. And Toninho, he would hang around, watching the boy breastfeed, change his diaper, sleep. Sometimes he tried to pick me up, but I wouldn't let him. My entire body tensed when he got close. "He's my son too," he said it once quietly, when we were alone. I didn't answer with all the firmness I could muster. "It's mine, only mine." But I knew it wasn't true. In that house, in that family, nothing was just mine. Not my body, not my son, not my life. The milk took a while to come in. Carlos cried from hunger, I cried from despair. My mother made teas and massages, but it seemed that my body refused to nourish that child that came from so much suffering. It was Don Aconseco, the neighbor, who saved the situation. He appeared with a can of powdered milk. He said he had some left over from his grandchildren. Lie. Sure, she had bought it, but she presented it in a way that my father couldn't refuse without making it seem worse than it already was. Do you accept, John? It's for the child, he's not to blame for anything. And so Carlos survived the first few months. Powdered milk donated by the neighbor, clothes that mysteriously appeared at the door, a blanket here, a pacifier there. The city knew, everyone knew, and some, a few, tried to help as much as they could. But the situation at home only got worse. My father drank more, hit more. My mother was visibly wasting away and Tonanho started making plans. When the kid grows up, he'll be just like me, he said. I will teach him everything. You will be my partner, my blood. The terror I felt when I heard that was worse than all the violence I had suffered. My son, he wanted to turn my son into a monster like him. No, not at all. I would die before I let that happen. And that's when I started planning our escape. Alone, at 15 years old, with a baby of months, without money, without anywhere to go, but I had to try for Carlos, for the innocent child, who deserved a chance to be different, to be better, to be free. The problem was how to escape from a prison where your jailers sleep in the next room. How to protect a child when you are still a child yourself. How do you find salvation when the whole world has turned its back on you? The answer would come in the most unexpected way possible and would change our lives forever. But I'll tell you about that later. The plan to escape kept hammering away in my head day and night. Carlos was already 3 months old, he was drinking from a bottle and sleeping almost all night. But how could a 15-year-old girl, without a leak, manage to escape with a baby? Where to go? With what money? It was December when I gathered the courage for the first attempt. My father had left for work. Tonanho went to play ball. My mother was in the backyard hanging out clothes. I picked up Carlos, wrapped him in a blanket, put his few clothes and a can of milk in a shopping bag. I didn't even have a suitcase. I was going to leave like a beggar anyway. I reached the gate, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would explode. A step on the sidewalk. 2, 3. That's when I heard my father's voice. Where do you think you're going? He hadn't gone to work. He was hiding, waiting as if he knew I was going to try. I turned around slowly, Carlos pressed against my chest. I was going to take the baby out for some air. The slap came before I could finish my sentence. I fell to the ground and sat on the sidewalk, protecting Carlos with my body. He started screaming in fear, you __, you liar. He thought he was going to run away with the bastard. He dragged me back home by my hair. Locked the door, took the key. From that day on, I became an official prisoner. I couldn't even go out into the yard without supervision. January 1966 arrived hot and stifling. Carlos grew up, he looked more and more like Tonanho every day, the same green eyes, the same square chin. It was my blessing and my curse. I loved that child more than my own life. But every familiar feature was a reminder of the horror I had lived through. Tonanho began to take more interest in the boy. I wanted to hold him, be cute, play. I was dying of disgust, but I couldn't always stop it. My father supported it. Let the uncle take care of the nephew. It's good to have a male figure around. Male figure? If he only knew what that figure was. One afternoon I was listening to Tonanho talking to a friend. When the kid grows up, he'll be my partner. I will teach everything I know. Woman, drink, fun. He'll be a real man, not a wimp raised by a woman. I froze. He wasn't just talking about teaching Carlos how to play ball or fish. He was talking about turning my son into another predator. Another monster? No, never. I would rather die. I would rather kill than let that happen. It was one night in February that I tried again, this time I was smarter. I waited for everyone to sleep soundly. I took the kitchen knife and forced the bedroom window open slowly, without making any noise. I passed Carlos first, then squeezed through the opening. I was almost reaching the street when the neighbor's dog started barking. It woke up the whole neighborhood, lights turning on, people looking. My father appeared at the door in his underwear and slippers. Possessed. Get her. I ran with Carlos in my arms. Barefoot. I ran like never before. But where to? I didn't know anyone. He had no family other than that. The dark streets all looked the same. The baby was crying. I cried, despair taking over. I ended up hiding behind the church. I stayed there crouched down, praying for dawn, for a solution, a miracle to appear. But the miracle did not come. My father came with Tonanho and 2 friends. They found me easy. Small town doesn't have many places to hide. The beating I got that time almost killed me. I was beaten until I passed out. I woke up 2 days later. All purple, barely able to open her eyes, they were so swollen. Next time I'll kill you, my father promised. And the bastard together? I didn't doubt it. The hatred in his eyes was real, palpable. If he tried to run away again, he would wake up in a coffin. If I woke up, March would have passed, April too. I lived like a ghost in that house. I took care of Carlos, did the housework, and got hit when he messed up. Tonanho continued to visit me at night when he felt like it, less than before. Now I was used, spoiled, but I still came. You're still mine, he said. It doesn't matter how many children I have, multiple children. The terror of getting pregnant again consumed me. But what could I do? Locking the door was no use. He would break it down. Screaming didn't work, he would get beaten more. Defending myself was impossible. He was stronger. It was in May that I met Rosanha, a girl my age who started going to church. She had come from Sao Paulo with her family. Her father was a banker who had been transferred, different from everyone else in the city. He wore long pants, swore, and smoked in secret. At first she scared me, then she fascinated me. She was everything I wanted to be. Free, courageous, self-possessed. We started talking after Mass. She didn't judge me, she didn't gossip behind my back like the others. How old is your son? She asked one day. And the father? He doesn't have a father. She looked at me in that way that only another woman understands. There's always a father. The question is whether it's worth talking about him. I didn't say anything, but I think she understood anyway. She started showing up at home with "I'm not a good person. I'm not a good person. I'm not a good person. I'm not a good person." But my mother was in favor of visiting me. It was good to have company, she said. What no one knew was that Rosanha was helping me plan. She had contacts in Sao Paulo, she knew of support homes, safe places for women like me, places that accepted single mothers, where they didn't ask questions. But she needed money for the bus fare, she explained. And something to keep you going until you get a job. Money, always the damn money. Where would a girl stuck at home get the money? The answer came from where I least expected it. June arrived with a June festival in the city. Bonfire, square dance, mulled wine. My father decided that the family would participate. Appearances, always appearances. Forced me to wear a calico dress and tie a ribbon in my hair. Carlos was on my lap wearing country clothes. At the party, while my father drank with his friends and Tonanho danced with the girls, I managed to find a moment alone. I sat on a bench far away, rocking Carlos, who was restless with the noise. That's when she approached, the mayor's wife, Mrs. Laura, rich, elegant, childless. Everyone knew that she suffered because she couldn't have babies. "Can I hold it for a little while?" he asked, looking at Carlos with that look of someone who was dying to do so. I left. She picked him up with such care, such affection. Carlos, who was shy around strangers, calmed down immediately. He even smiled. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "So beautiful." We stayed there in silence, she rocking my son, I thinking about life. Suddenly, she said, "It must be hard, so young, alone." Yes, I agreed. I didn't have the strength to pretend. "If you need help, anything." I looked into her eyes. I saw kindness there. True kindness, not the false charity of the church's bigots. "Are you serious?" "I'm very serious." And that's how it started. Dona Laura started helping me in secret. She sent food baskets, clothes for Carlos, sometimes money, always discreetly, always through third parties. My father thought it was charity from the church. With the money she gave me, I started saving for my escape fund. I hid the bills inside the mattress pad, between the diapers, in any corner I thought was safe. Penny by penny, bill by bill, Julio flew by. Carlos was already crawling, babbling his first words. Mama was the first. I cried so much when he said, it was proof that, despite everything, I was a mother. A real mother, not just the girl who gave birth. August brought another failed attempt. This time I didn't even leave the house. Tonanho caught me packing my overnight bag. Are you going to travel, little sister? He asked with that cynical smile. Carlos, have a fever. And take it to the post. Liar. He came closer, cornered me against the wall. Do you know what happens to a liar? His hand on my neck, squeezing, not hard enough to kill, just to remind me that he could. If you try to run away again, it won't be your father who kills you. It'll be me and the bastard. Well, you can always make another one, right? The threat to Carlos was what broke me. I could handle anything, except losing my son. I put the bag away, dismantled the plan. For now, September has arrived and with it Carlos' first birthday. I made a simple cake with the flour I had. We sang happy birthday, softly. My father didn't like fuss. The boy clapped his hands and covered his face in frosting. For a moment, a brief moment, we were just a mother and son celebrating life. But reality quickly returned. That night, Tonanho drank too much. He came into my room staggering, smelling of kashika. Today is 1 year, he said, looking at Carlos, sleeping in the improvised crib. A year since my son was born. Isn't that your son? He laughed. An ugly, humorless laugh. No. Look at him. His eyes, his chin are my spitting image. Get out of my room. Your room? More laughter. Nothing here is yours. Not the room, not the son. You're mine. You forgot. He grabbed me. I tried to fight, but he was strong. He was drunk, violent. Carlos woke up with the commotion, started crying. Shut him up. Tonanho growled. I let go, ran to the crib, and rocked Carlos, desperate to calm him down. Behind me, I felt Tonanho approaching. Good to see you two together, mother and son. My family. Your family. A billy climbed into my throat. I held Carlos tighter, as if I could protect him with my body. One day, Tonanho continued. His voice thick with alcohol. One day I'll tell him who the real father is. And then the three of us will be a real family. It was the last straw. Right there in that moment, with my son in my arms and that monster on my back, I made a decision. I was going to run away, even if it cost me my life, but I was going to get Carlos out of there. I was going to save him from that hell. What I didn't know was that the opportunity was closer than I imagined, and it would come in the most tragic way possible. October started differently. My father was acting strange, quieter, drinking less. At first, I thought it was all in my head, but my mother noticed too. Zhao is acting weird, she commented one day while washing dishes. You're tired, no appetite. It was true. The man who had always been a bull, strong and brutish, seemed to be withering, his skin yellow, his eyes sunken, but no one said anything. In our house, showing concern was a sign of weakness. It was one October morning that everything changed. I woke up to screams coming from my parents' room. I ran there with Carlos in my arms. My father was lying on the floor, writhing, foam coming out of his mouth, his whole body stiff, my mother kneeling beside him, trying to hold him. Call for help, she shouted. Tonanho appeared scared. For the first time in my life, I saw real fear in his eyes. He ran to call the pharmacist. He was the closest thing to a doctor I had at the time. But it was no use. When Mr. Firmino arrived with the medicine bag, my father had already stopped foaming, stopped moving, stopped breathing. Heart attack, the pharmacist diagnosed. Lightning fast, there was nothing to do. Dead. My father was dead. The man who terrorized me my entire life, who allowed all the abuse, who called me a underscore underscore and a underscore underscore. Dead there on the bedroom floor, in my pajamas and slippers, I must have felt something, sadness, relief, anything. But I only felt emptiness, an enormous emptiness, as if a weight I had been carrying for years had suddenly disappeared and I didn't know how to walk without it. The wake was that very afternoon. In a small, hot city, you can't wait. The house was full of people. Relatives I've never seen, friends from the bar, colleagues from the city hall, all lamenting, all pretending that Jao Razuka was a good man. He was strict but fair, they said, he took care of his family. Honest worker, lies, but lies that everyone preferred to believe. Tonenho became the man of the house overnight, he received condolences, organized the funeral, made the decisions. I saw on his face the pride of taking over his father's position. The new boss, the new owner. It was at the cemetery, watching the coffin being lowered, that the penny dropped. My dead father meant one thing, a chance. Maybe the only one I would have, the man who held me, who watched me, who threatened to kill me if I ran away. It no longer existed. I looked at Tonenho from the other side of the grave. He held my mother, playing the role of devoted son, but his eyes met mine. And in the midst of the mourning of the entire theater, he smiled. A small, discreet smile, just for me. The smile said it all. Now I'm the boss. Now you are even more mine. But he didn't know. I didn't know that at that exact moment, watching the earth fall over my father's coffin, I was planning my freedom. Our freedom, mine and Carlos's. My father's death was not a tragedy, it was a miracle. The miracle I prayed for. The first few days after the burial were a blur. People coming in and out of houses, bringing food, giving kisses. My mother walked around the house like a lost soul, not knowing what to do without her husband to order her around. Tonenho was stretched out, acting as the head of the family, receiving the inventory documents, signing papers, but I didn't waste any time. While they dealt with the bureaucracy of death, I planned life. Rosinha appeared on the third day with that way of hers, of someone who doesn't care about conventions. So, are you going to take the chance? I looked at Carlos playing on the floor. 14 months already, walking with those wobbly legs, speaking loose words. My beautiful, smart boy, who deserved better than that cursed house. I will, but I need to be smart. When? Soon, before he takes over everything once and for all. The plan was simple, wait for the inventory, take my share, because I had a right to something as a daughter, and disappear. Rosinha had already spoken to a cousin in Sao Paulo who rented rooms to young women. It wasn't ideal, but it was a start. The problem started when the lawyer read the will. Yes, my father had a will. And guess what? He left everything to his son. All. The house, the land, the savings. For me and my mother, only the right to live there as long as Tonenho allowed it. But that's not fair. My mother finally got the courage to complain. The lawyer shrugged. The law allows it. Her husband could dispose of the assets as he wished. I saw the smile of triumph on Tonenho's face. Now it was official. He owned everything, everyone, me. That night, lying in bed with Carlos sleeping next to me, despair hit me hard. Without money, how was I going to escape? The bus ticket to Sao Paulo was expensive. I needed food for the road, milk for Carlos, a place to stay when I got there. It was then that I remembered, Mrs. Laura, the mayor's wife, she had said she would help if needed. Was the offer still valid? The next day, I made up a story that I needed to go to the pharmacy to buy medicine for Carlos. It was a lie, but my mother let me. She was so lost without her husband that she didn't even question anything anymore. I ran to the mayor's house. Huge mansion, well-kept garden, high fence. I knocked on the gate, my heart in my mouth. What if she didn't want to receive me? What if he had regretted the offer? But she came looking beautiful as always, dressed in silk, with a gentle smile. Jessica, what a surprise! I heard about your father. My condolences. Thank you, Mrs. Laura. I need to talk to you, ma'am. She saw the desperation on my face. Come in, darling. Let's talk. In the luxurious room, with Carlos on my lap, looking in wonder at the crystal decorations, I told him everything. Not the sordid details, I still didn't have the courage to say those, but the essentials, that I needed to leave that house, that I had nowhere to go, that I feared for my son's future. She listened in silence. When I finished, he sighed deeply. I suspected. Small town, we are always suspicious. But I never had proof, I never knew how to help. Now can you please, I just need money for the ticket to start over. She became thoughtful. After what seemed like an eternity, he said, I can do better than that. I have a friend in Brasilia who owns a family boarding house. She needs help in the kitchen, so she offers me a room and board. It's not much, but it's honest work and a safe place. Brasilia. Federal capital. Far enough away from Gurupai to never cross paths with Tonanho again, my heart raced with hope. I accept anything. I'll call her today. And the passage? Consider it a gift. I almost cried with gratitude, but Mrs. Laura wasn't finished. There is one condition, Jessica. You leave and don't come back. Doesn't write, doesn't send news, cuts off contact completely. It's for your safety and mine. My husband can't know that I helped. He understands? I understood. Of course I understand. The mayor wouldn't like to know that the woman helped the town's lost woman escape. It could tarnish the family's reputation. I promise. No one will ever know. I left there with a light heart for the first time in years. I had a plan, I had help, I had hope. I just needed to act quickly before Tonanho noticed anything. The following days were spent in careful preparation. I separated the essentials. Clothes for Carlos, documents, the little money he had hidden. Everything fit in a travel bag, a whole life in a bag. Rosanha helped as much as she could. Discover the bus schedules, the best route and where to make stops. Taught me how to use the payphone, how to ask for information, basic things that I had never needed to know. In a big city it's different, she explained. You have to be smart, don't trust just anyone. The scheduled date has arrived. November 3, 1966. The bus left at 4 in the morning. Dona Laura sent the money for the ticket with Rosanha along with a letter of recommendation to her friend in Brasilia. The day before, I barely slept. I kept looking at Carlos, memorizing every detail. The light brown hair, the upturned little nose, the chubby little hands, my son, my treasure, who was going to discover the world beyond those four walls. At 3 in the morning, I got up slowly, dressed Carlos while he was still sleeping, grabbed the bag, and made the sign of the cross. The house was silent. My mother snoring softly in the room. Tonanho had left. It was Friday, party day at the city brothel. I tiptoed around the room. Every creak of the steel sounded like thunder. Carlos shifted in my lap, grumbling. I did it softly, rocking him. I was almost at the door when I heard it. Are you really leaving? I froze. I turned around slowly. My mother was standing there in the kitchen doorway. Old sweater, disheveled hair, eyes red from crying. Mom, I know. I always knew everything. Her voice was a broken whisper. But I never had the courage. Your father, I was afraid. Why didn't you protect me? The question was out before he could hold it back. Years of hurt in one sentence. She lowered her head. Because I am weak. I always was, but you are not. You are strong, Jessica. Stronger than I will ever be. We stared at each other in the dark, mother and daughter. Two opposite destinies. Go, she said finally. Go and don't look back. Take care of this boy. Give him the life you deserve. I approached. I kissed her face. Wrinkled skin, smell of coconut soap, taste of tears. Bye, Mom. Bye, my daughter. I walked out the door without looking back. The early morning air was cold, cutting. Carlos snuggled into my chest, going back to sleep. I walked quickly through the deserted streets. Each step took me further away from that house, that life, that nightmare. The bus station was small and poorly lit. Rosanha was already there, faithful to the end. I thought you weren't coming anymore. I almost never come. My mother, she knows, she always knew. Rosanha nodded. Between women, some things don't need to be said. The bus arrived huffing and puffing, releasing black smoke. The driver, a pot-bellied gentleman, took my ticket without looking. Brasilia is a long trip, 18 hours, if it doesn't break down on the way. 18 hours. Almost a whole day moving away from hell, getting closer to who knows what, but anything was better than staying. I climbed the steps with difficulty, balancing Carlos and the bag. The bus was nearly empty, half a dozen passengers asleep, heads bobbing to the rhythm of the road. I chose a bench in the back near the window. I settled Carlos, who was now awake, looking at everything with baby-like curiosity. Rosanha went up to say goodbye. Take care of him and yourself. I'll take care of it. When you get there, forget about this place. Forget everything. Start from scratch. As if it were easy. She held my hand. It's not easy, but it's necessary. You deserve to be happy, Jessica. You both deserve it. The driver honked. Let's go, let's go. You have a schedule to meet. Rosanha ran down and waved from the sidewalk as the bus started. I waved back, my eyes burning with unshed tears. The bus picked up speed, leaving behind the familiar little houses, the church where I suffered in silence, the cemetery where my father rotted, the square where I never played. Gurupai disappearing into the dark, becoming memory, becoming past. Carlos pointed to the window, amazed at the lights passing by quickly. Oh Mom, oh, it's my son. We are going far away. He clapped his hands, happy with the adventure. So small, so innocent. I had no idea of the hell we were leaving behind, of the monster that slept in that house and that would wake up in a few hours to discover that its prey had fled. I imagined Tonanho's face when he saw the empty room, the anger, the hatred, but also the relief. Now he would no longer need to divide the inheritance, nor support his sister's bastard. Yes, he would be furious at first, but then, he would find another victim. Man like him always tidies up. The city was full of helpless girls, neglectful fathers, weak mothers, but I was no longer one of them. The road stretched out ahead, a ribbon of asphalt cutting through the hills. The sun was beginning to rise, dyeing the sky pink and orange. Carlos fell asleep on my lap, breathing softly. The little hand gripping my blouse. 18 hours. 18 hours to leave Jessica Razuka behind and be born another person. Someone with no past, no trauma, no fear. Someone who could start over. I leaned my head against the window, watching the landscape change. Sparse countryside, poor little towns, isolated gas stations. The deep Brazil passing before my eyes, so big, so full of possibilities. In Brasilia, nobody knew me, nobody knew my story. I could invent anything. War widow, country girl trying her luck, ordinary single mother, anything but the truth. The truth would be buried in Gurupai, along with my father, along with my innocence, along with the girl I was and would never be again. Carlos moved, grunted. I gave him the breast. I still breastfed more for comfort than hunger. He sucked eagerly, his little green eyes looking at me with absolute trust, green like his father's. But that didn't matter anymore. They were just eyes. Beautiful eyes of my beautiful son, who would grow up free, happy, without ever knowing where he came from. The bus rocked, the engine roared, the hours passed, quick stops in small towns whose names I didn't even know. People going up and down, lives crossing paths for a moment. At one of the stops, I got off to use the bathroom. A woman alone with a baby always attracts attention. A lady offered to hold Carlos while I went. Thanks, but I'll take him with me. I would never, ever leave him alone with strangers again. I would never trust blindly again. I had learned the hard way that danger lurks where we least expect it. Back on the bus, I ate the snack that Rosanha had prepared. Bread with mortadella, a banana, water in a small bottle. Simple food, but I like freedom. The afternoon fell, the night came. Carlos slept most of the trip, waking up only to nurse or when the bus shook too much. I didn't sleep, I couldn't. Every kilometer was a victory, every city passed, a relief. Finally, it was almost midnight when the driver announced, next stop, Brasilia, bus station. Those who are getting off, get their stuff ready. Brasilia. We're here. I looked out the window and saw the city lights. Large illuminated concrete blocks, wide streets, a world completely different from the one I knew. I took a deep breath. The new life was beginning now, without looking back, as Rosanha said, without fear, as my mother never managed. Just me and Carlos, against the world. The bus stopped. I got off with shaky legs, my body aching from the trip. Carlos woke up with the movement, looked around, scared, with so much light, so much noise. Calm down, my love. We've arrived. The bus station was huge compared to the one in Gurupai. People everywhere, buses arriving and leaving, vendors shouting. I felt lost, small, but also invisible. Perfect. It was exactly what I needed, to disappear in the crowd. I looked for a public phone, dialed the number that Dona Laura had given me. A female voice answered. Boa Esperança Pension. Hello? Yes, yes Dona Marta. Dona Laura sent me. Jessica. Jessica Razuka. Oh, yes. I was waiting. Come, my dear, take a taxi. Give the driver this address. A taxi. I had never taken a taxi in my life, but I learned quickly. Big cities teach you the hard way. The driver, a friendly old man, helped with my luggage. First time in Brasilia? Yes, you'll like it. A new city, full of opportunities. Opportunity was all I needed. The guest house was in a residential block, a simple but clean building. Dona Marta was waiting for me at the door, a woman of about 50, grey hair tied up, and a plaid apron. You must be tired. Come. I prepared a room. The room was small, but it had the essentials. A single bed, a makeshift crib for Carlos, a dresser, a mirror, luxury compared to what I knew. The kitchen is on the ground floor. Can you start tomorrow? I can. Of course I can. Great. There are 3 meals a day for guests. Breakfast at 6, lunch at noon, dinner at 7. The payment is weekly, plus room and board. I agreed to everything. I would work whatever was necessary. That first night in Brasilia, lying in the strange bed, with Carlos sleeping peacefully in the crib next to me, I finally allowed myself to cry. Crying with relief, with fear, with hope, with everything I had experienced and everything I was yet to experience. Outside, the city was asleep. A planned, modern city, full of promises, where no one knew me, where my past did not exist, where I could be anyone. I chose to be Jessica Silva, a common name, with no history, a young widow, her husband killed in a work accident, one of the thousands of migrants who arrived every day in the capital in search of a better life. And it was true, in a way I was migrating, I was looking for a better life. Just not for my dead husband. The past stayed in Gurupi. The future began there, in that cramped little room, in that strange city, with my son in my arms and freedom within reach. It would not be easy, but it would be ours. And that was enough. Brasilia was my salvation and my challenge. The first months at Dona Marta's boarding house were hard, but in a different way. It wasn't the terror of before, it was the hardness of honest work, of a heavy routine, freer. I woke up at 5 in the morning, left Carlos sleeping. Dona Marta took care of him while I worked and went to the kitchen. Breakfast for 15 guests was no joke. Grilled bread, fried eggs, freshly brewed coffee. Then I cleaned everything, prepared lunch, beans, rice, mixed, cleaned again, prepared dinner. In the middle of all this I ran to breastfeed Carlos, change his diaper, give him attention. But you know what? It was good, it was tiring, it was sweaty, but it was mine. No one touched me without permission, no one invaded my room, no one called me __. I was just Jessica, the cook, the quiet but hard-working girl. Carlos was growing strong. At a year and a half old he was already running around the boarding house, making fun of the guests. He was the joy of the place. Dona Marta was doting on him. The maids fought over him to play. For the first time once upon a time, my son had a crooked, improvised family, but a family nonetheless. 1967 flew by. I spent every penny. My dream was to leave the boarding house, rent a little place of our own, however small, but ours. Where I could raise Carlos my way, away from curious eyes, from uncomfortable questions. It was in 1968 that my life took another turn. A new guest showed up at the boarding house, Mr. Roberto, a retired civil servant, recently widowed, a man of about 60, polite, quiet. He would stay there for weeks, then disappear, then come back. He noticed Carlos. It was hard not to notice. A 2-year-old boy, smart, talkative, with green eyes that caught your attention. He started bringing little gifts, a toy car here, a little book there. I thanked him, but kept my distance. He was a very kind man, he always made me wary. But Mr. Roberto was different. He didn't try anything, he just talked, told stories, played with Carlos. Little by little, I started to let my guard down. He told me about his wife who had died of cancer, of the children who lived far away, of the loneliness that weighed on him. You remind me of me, my daughter, he said one day. The same strength, the same determination. One afternoon, Carlos fell while playing and scraped his knee. He cried so much that nothing could console him. Mr. Roberto appeared with a first aid kit. I was an army nurse, he explained, cleaning the wound. I can take care of that. While he was taking care of Carlos, talking to distract himself, singing a silly little song, something changed in me. I saw there not a dangerous man, but a grandfather, someone who also needed a family. The friendship grew slowly. He came into the kitchen and helped peel potatoes while we talked. He spoke of the times of Jacelino, the construction of Brasilia, the hopes of a new country. I listened, I learned, I dreamed. One day he made the proposal, Jessica, I have a house on 403 South. It's been empty since my wife died. It's too big for me alone. How about you and Carlos live there? It's not a favor. You take care of the house, cook, and I'll pay you a fair salary. My heart skipped a beat. A house? Leaving the boarding house sounded too good to be true. But what will people say? He laughed. Let them say it. I'm too old to care about gossip. You need a house. I need company. It's business, not romance. I thought about it a lot. I talked to Dona Marta, who approved it right away. Roberto is a decent man, Jessica. I've never seen him disrespect anyone. I accepted. In March 1969, we moved into his house. It was a simple but spacious two-story house. 3 bedrooms, a backyard, everything was tidy. Carlos got a room of his own for the first time in his life. The routine was calm. I took care of the house, cooked meals. Mr. Roberto left early and came back late in the afternoon. We talked at dinner, then each went their own way. Mutual respect, healthy distance. But children don't know these boundaries. Carlos adopted Roberto as his grandfather. He called him Grandpa. He followed the old man around the house, asked for stories, showed him drawings, and poor Roberto melted. He was the one who taught Carlos to ride a bike, who took him to the park for the first time, who explained about the planes that flew by. Look, Carly knows, that big guy is a Boan. Seeing the two of them together, my heart sank. That was what family should be. Affection without malice, care without ulterior motives. Everything that was missing in my childhood, my son was getting. 1970 brought changes. Roberto got sick, with a heart problem. I started taking care of him more closely. Medication at the right time, a special diet, forced bed rest. He complained, but obeyed. You're worse than a sergeant. He played. It's for your own good. I know, that's why I put up with it. One afternoon in the hospital, after a when I was really scared, he grabbed my hand. Jessica, I need to ask you something. If something happens to me, don't talk like that. Listen, if it does, I want you to keep the house. You and Carlos. I've already taken care of the paperwork. I protested. It was too much. I couldn't accept it. But he insisted. I have no one, Jessica. The kids barely care. You and Carlos are my family now. Let me take care of you like you take care of me. I cried. For the first time in years. I cried out of gratitude. Not for the money or the house, but for the gesture. Someone seeing me as a person, not a thing. Someone wanting to protect me, not use me. Mr. Roberto got better, but he became more fragile. I started sleeping in the next room so I could hear if I needed anything. Carlos slept between the two of us. My room when I was scared, his when he wanted a story. In 1971, I enrolled Carlos in school. 5 years old. Smart, just like him. Blue uniform, little backpack on his back, gap-toothed smile. My pride, my miracle. Mom, why don't I have a father? He asked one day, out of the blue. I froze. I knew the question would come, but I wasn't prepared. Your father died, son, when you were a baby. How did he die? An accident at work. He was a good boy. I took a deep breath. He was. Yes, he was. A lie. But some lies are necessary. Some truths kill. Carlos accepted the explanation for now. But I knew. One day I would have to tell more. Invent details, create memories, anything but the truth. 1972 arrived with the World Cup. All of Brazil stopped to cheer. Mr. Roberto bought a new color TV, a total luxury. We watched all the games together. Me, him, Carlos, and some neighbors. When Brazil won, everyone celebrated. Carlos painted his face green and yellow and ran down the street with the other children, normal, happy, free. Looking at him there, celebrating with his little friends, I thought of Gurup. Did he still exist? Did Tonanho still live there? Was my mother alive? I blocked it out. The thoughts. That life had died. I was a different person now. Jessica Silva, cook, single mother, living in Brasilia. The past didn't exist, but sometimes in the early hours of the morning it would come back in nightmares, where Tonanho would find me, where he would tear Carlos away from me, where everything would start all over again. I would wake up in a cold sweat, run to Carlos' room, check if he was safe there, sleeping peacefully. In 1973, Carlos turned 7. Mr. Roberto organized a party. Cake, balloons, kids from all over the street. I took pictures with the camera he gave me as a gift. Frozen moments of improbable happiness. That year, something changed between me and Mr. Roberto. It wasn't romance. Neither did I want it, nor did he try. It was something deeper. Complicity. A real family built on day-to-day life, on mutual care, on affection without demands. He got worse in the winter, hospitalization after hospitalization. I divided my time between the hospital and home, between taking care of him and Carlos. Neighbors helped, teachers understood. A support network that I've never had before. One night in the hospital, too weak to speak out loud, he whispered, "Jessica, you were the daughter I always wanted to have." Carlos, the grandson I never met. "Thanks." "Thank you," I replied, holding his hand. "For everything." He died in September, peacefully, sleeping as he deserved. The burial was simple. His sons appeared, 2 men in suits, with unfriendly faces, and questioned everything. Who was I? What were you doing there? Why did father leave the house to me? I'm his maid, I explained. Maid who lives in the house, who inherits everything. The insinuation was clear. They thought I was a lover, a con artist, a gold digger. I let them talk. I didn't have to explain myself to anyone. The lawyer resolved everything. The papers were in order. Your Roberto's wishes are recorded. The house was mine and Carlos's, legally. The children left, huffing and puffing, promising to contest. They never showed up again. 1974 started differently. For the first time in my life, I had something of my own, a home, stability, a future. Carlos grew up healthy and studious. I got a job at a snack bar nearby. We needed to work, to earn our living. But the nights were difficult. Without Roberto, the house seemed too big, too empty. Carlos missed his step-grandfather. I missed the company. That was when I met Dona Nusa, my next-door neighbor, a true Bayan woman, a respected saint mother, who saw my helplessness and offered to help me. "Girl, you carry heavy stuff. I see it in your eye. Want to chat?" I refused first. Then, one sleepless night, I knocked on her door. We had coffee, we talked. I didn't tell everything, I never told everything, but I talked about loneliness, fear, nightmares. She listened, nodded, understood. Everyone has a ghost, daughter. The secret is not to let them boss us around. We became friends. She took care of Carlos when I worked late. I helped with the parties at her terreiro. Community, belonging, things I never had in Gurup. Carlos loved the stories she told. Orishas, legends, myths. I learned about culture, religion, respect for differences. The open mind and big heart grew. This boy will go far. Dona Nusa prophesied. It has its own light. I hoped it was true, that he would go far, far from any shadow of the past, from any mark of the violence that created him. In 1975, Carlos turned 9 years old. Preteen, inquisitive, curious about everything. The questions about the father returned, more elaborate. What kind of work did he do? Construction. He helped build Brasilia. Why is there no picture of him? We lost everything in a move. How did you meet? Each question, A new lie. Each lie, one more brick in the wall that protected him from the truth. I started writing. At night, after Carlos fell asleep, he would put his memories on paper, not to publish. God forbid, but to organize, to make sure I would never forget, even if I wanted to. Gurupai, Tonanho, the basement, the escape, everything there in crooked letters, notebook hidden at the bottom of the drawer. One day I thought, when I die, someone will find it, read it, understand it, but not Carlos. Never Carlos. 1976 brought adolescence once and for all. Voice changing, pimples on the face, interest in girls, normal, healthy, everything that adolescence should be, but the eyes, those damn green eyes, more like Tonanho's with each passing year. Sometimes, from a specific angle, in a particular expression, I saw the monster in my angel. I took a deep breath, remembered, genetics is not destiny. Creation trumps nature. My son was good, would be good, regardless of the blood in his veins. In 1977, he graduated from high school. Carlos in a suit, diploma in hand, proud smile, I in the audience crying secretly, my boy becoming a man, a good man. The years went by and I followed each moment as if it were the last. 1977 and my Carlos taking the entrance exam. Mom, I want to go to college, engineering, like my father. My father, the invented ghost that he idolized, the dead hero who never existed. He's going to have a child, he's going to make all his dreams come true, his, mine, and the imaginary fathers that I created to protect him. In 1978, there were those nights of studying, handouts spread out on the table, nervousness in the air. Carlos Posado was tense, and I was even more so. When the results came out, he was accepted into UNIB, civil engineering, there was an explosion of joy, a party in the street. Dona Nusa made that delicious feijoada, neighbors brought drinks, music, until late. Carlos hugged me, laughing, celebrating. I did it, Mom. I did it. We did it. I thought. Against everything. Against everyone. We did it. College was expensive, no one warned us about that. Books, materials, transportation. I went back to working 2 jobs, a cafeteria during the day, cleaning at night, tiring, but necessary for his future. 1979 brought news. Carlos, in his second year, was dating a girl in his class, doing an internship, becoming the man his father never was, honest, hardworking, affectionate. One day he came home with his girlfriend. Claudia, a classmate, a good-natured, studious, beautiful girl from a traditional family in Brasilia. Mom, this is the woman of my life. I smiled. I was 19 and I already knew it. A young love, but a true love. 1980 was the year of graduation. My son, an engineer, tears of pride, chest bursting. He was on stage receiving his diploma, looking for my face in the crowd. Graduation party, Claudia's family present, father a doctor, mother a teacher, brothers a lawyer, fine, polite people, treating me well, despite everything, the single mother, the maid, the one without a last name. Mrs. Jessica, you raised a wonderful man, said Claudia's mother. He was born good. I replied, that's a lie, the truth, both. Born of violence, but chose love. Miracle that I cultivated with blood, sweat and silence. 1981 arrived with marriage. Full church, and Gralda, wedding march. Carlos in a suit, Claudia in white, me as godmother, the groom's only family. Where are your relatives, Mrs. Jessica, they asked. I don't have any. They're all dead. Another half-truth. Dead to me, at least. The priest spoke about union, family, Christian love. I thought about Gurupai, about forced marriage, about terror disguised as a sacrament. I compared it to that. 2 young people choosing each other, loving each other, respecting each other. The difference between hell and heaven. 1982 was blessed. First grandchild, little girl Maria Clara. Beautiful, healthy, and a crybaby. Carlos, a foolish father, Claudia, radiant, and me, a grandmother, at 51 years old. I held that little creature in my arms, perfect, innocent, a real granddaughter, a real family, with no secrets, no shadows, no fear. Grandma, she looks just like you. Someone commented. I looked closely. Dark hair, upturned nose. No green eyes, thank God. Nothing that reminded me of him. 1984 brought the second grandchild, João Roberto, a tribute to Mr. Roberto. A smiling, calm boy, Carlos building my own house, a stable life, a happy family, everything I dreamed of, more than I deserved. Sometimes at family gatherings I would look around, a table full of people laughing, children playing, a normal, everyday, blessed life. No one imagined it, no one would ever imagine it. And that's how it had to be. In 1985, Carlos took the big step. He started his own company, small but promising. Public contracts, important projects, a respected name in the market. Mom, I want you to stop working. Let me take care of you now. I resisted at first. Independence was my security, but he insisted. Claudia supported me. After all, I deserved to rest. I retired from cleaning. A full-time grandmother's life. Picking up my grandson from school, making carrot cake, telling bedtime stories. Made-up stories, of course, fairies, princes, happy endings, no real monsters, dark basements, desperate escapes. 1986 marked our move to a house. Garden, swimming pool, room for each child. Carlos insisted that I live with him. You are the head of the family, mother. Your place is with us. My place. After so many non-places, I finally had one. But the past, oh, the past never rests. On a sleepless night that same year, I turned on the TV, Jornal Nacional, Notícias do Brasil Todo, and suddenly a news report, City of Gurupi modernizes infrastructure. Gurupi still existed. Aerial images, interviews, progress. I looked for familiar faces, but I didn't find any. 20 years change a lot. Did he still live there? Did he get married? Did he have children? Did he do to others what he did to me? I turned off the TV. Some portals shouldn't be opened. Here we are. I'm 73 years old. Time flies when you're busy living, instead of just surviving. Carlos is already a grandfather too. Gray hair, but the same sweet smile. Maria Clara, a doctor, like the step-grandfather she never knew. João Roberto followed in his father's footsteps in engineering. Alice, a teenager, dreaming of being a writer. Great-grandmother, have you ever thought about writing your memoirs? She asked the other day. Almost I choked on my coffee. What memories, my angel. Grandma's life doesn't have much adventure. Line number 1001. But some stories are not meant to be told, they are meant to be buried, forgotten, erased, so that future generations can write their own, clean, without the stains of the past. These days I dreamed about Gurup, the first time in years, but it wasn't a nightmare. I dreamed about the city, on fire, turning to ashes, the wind taking everything away. I woke up feeling light. Now, recording this video for the channel Memorias de Vovô, I'm telling this story for the first time. Why now? Maybe because time is running out. Maybe because other women need to hear it. Maybe because keeping secrets is tiring. And I'm too old to carry this weight alone. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. I know it was heavy, I know it was mean, but it needed to be said. There are many Jessicas out there, trapped in their own basements, thinking there's no way out. There is a way out, there always is. Sometimes it's a door, sometimes it's a door. Sometimes it's a window, sometimes it's a hole in the wall that you have to dig yourself. But there is a way out. The miracle wasn't the money for the bus ticket, nor the job offer, nor even my father's death. The miracle was that I believed I deserved better. It was that I had the courage to seize the chance when it came. Carlos doesn't know this story, he never will. Some would say it's wrong, that a child has the right to know where he came from. I say, a child has the right to be happy, to live without the burden of crimes he didn't commit, to believe that his father was a hero, not a monster. I protected him from this truth his whole life. It's my last act of love to take this secret to the grave, to let him continue to believe in the beautiful lie I built. Father, an engineer, killed in an accident, the love of his mother's youth. Today I'm even grateful for his green eyes. They taught me that appearance doesn't define character, that evil is not inherited, it's learned, and that a mother's love can transform any cursed inheritance into a blessing. If you've watched this far, Do this grandma a favor and subscribe on the channel, leave your like, show that my story was not told in vain. And there's more. Join our WhatsApp group. Every day we share real stories of Brazilian grandmothers. Stories of pain, but also of overcoming, of women who turned hell into a garden, stones into bread, tears into smiles. The link is here in the description. Come be part of this chain of strong women. Because our strength is not in muscles or money, it is in surviving, protecting, transforming. My name is Jessica Razuka, or rather, it was. Today I am Jessica Silva, mother of Carlos, grandmother of Maria Clara and João Roberto, great-grandmother of Alice. I am the woman who chose life, not death. Who chose love, not hate. Who chose to lie to protect, not to speak to destroy. And if I had to choose again, I would do everything the same. Until never again, Gurapi. Until forever, new life. That was my story. Our story. A story of miracles, yes, but miracles that we make happen ourselves.